What we have today is a question and answer period that is going to be held by two members of the organization CNA, Larry Fields and Joe Silverman. They are here to answer any questions that you might have or to take any input that you might have on what you feel the economic value or benefits are to our community in having the Trinidad Correctional Facility located here. Larry and Joe are at the end of the table here, and if you have any questions, you can come up to the podium and address them. We've got members of City Council as well as the County Commissioners here. City Councilman Anthony Matei, Joe Bonato, Michelle Miles. Commissioners Mac Loudon, Gary Hill, and Anthony Abeda. So if there's any questions you have or any discussions you would like to have, feel free. I think we'll ask the members of the survey team maybe to start off by giving us a little background as to what their survey is all about and how it came to be.
All right, thanks. I appreciate that. And I think, can everybody hear me all right? Yeah. I'll just speak from my chair. I'm sitting next to the gentleman with the gun for a reason. We're not here really to bring any bad news. We're really just here to hear from you. And as indicated, we want to hear your comments and your thoughts, both personal, professional, the economic impact that the facility, our facility out 13 miles outside of town, Trinidad Correctional Facility, operated by the Colorado Department of Corrections, what kind of economic impact it brings to the area. Now that's one measure. The second is, and I know they're not doing as much of it as they have in the past, but I know from time to time they have offender work groups or inmate work groups that come in and work in our community here to refurbish things and to help out with the local government where they have to get something cleaned up, get something repainted, or just simply help maintain the city and the county around. So from both sides of that area, we'd love to hear. Again, my name is Larry Fields, Joe Silverman. We're employed, I as a contractor, Joe as a full-time employee with an organization called CNA. You can research the company at www.cna.org. Primarily, they are a not-for-profit research organization that does a lot of military handles a lot of military contracts that takes a look at efficiencies and economic impacts and programs and whatnot, and that's what Joe's been involved in the past. I come strictly from a corrections background. I'm from Oklahoma, retired from the Oklahoma Department of Corrections in '97, went into the private sector, designed and built prisons for a long time, operated in private prisons for a while, and now I'm just doing consulting work on a lot of different and various projects. So corrections and economic feasibility studies and efficiency studies is what Joel's involved in. So any questions thus far?
What is the reason that AOC is doing these additional evaluations now? Is it based because of the economic struggles that we're having throughout the state?
The question is, why is the Department of Corrections doing this? And that's a great question because I should have explained that to you at the front. The purpose of our visit is that the Colorado Department of Corrections is finding itself in a unique, somewhat unique position, and that its inmate population has been decreasing somewhat. And the beds are somewhat plentiful. Not only because there's been a lot of state beds developed and opened in the state of Colorado, but also the private prison companies have moved in and they've built and they've opened up beds. And so they're finding themselves with a small inventory of cells. And they're looking down the road, 5 years, 7 years down the road, and they're saying, if this trend continues, we really are going to have the need to close a couple of facilities. And so if that be the case, the governor said, from his office is, okay, let's look down the road, let's do the study, and if by chance we do continue to see this reduction in inmate population, what facilities would we take a look at first and possibly close? And he said, I'm going to hire some outside consultants, i.e. us, to go in and take a look at every facility in the state of Colorado, correctional facility, and then make a recommendation back to them about what we saw and what the prison looked like and what the impact is for the community. So if the time comes, they can make an intelligent decision about what beds they would use.
I will say,
Just a minute, James. So everybody can hear. Whoever's got a question, would you please come to the podium?
I just want you to get some exercise.
Thank you.
Sheriff James Casillas. The question I had for you is twofold in nature, is that the state is doing a survey based on their bed capacities within DLC. I understand that. You know, crime has not succeeded, has not declined, maybe to DLC because plea bargains are made or people are being sentenced to county jails. So when you do your feasibility plan, that you're looking at the state funding, also look at the county funding, that if we get stuck with these inmates, then it's an impact on us, not the state, but the county, that's to pay for these inmates that are going to be housed in our jails. So I don't know if there's a feasibility being done to see the increase in population in county jails throughout the state, or just looking at DOC's standpoint of feasibility on the impact that it's given them financially, or less beds being used.
Yeah, our study just primarily focuses on the state beds and the private beds, all under the management or contract of the Colorado Department of Corrections. I don't believe that anybody is going to be taking a look, or has at this juncture looked at the county or the local city jail beds.
Well, I think that would be an important factor to look at, because then it's not a true picture of the stats based on who is going to prison and who's going to county jails. And I just sit on Senate Bill 94, which is for juveniles, and that's always been a sore spot with me when the joint budget committees took money from us on the Senate Bill 94 for juveniles and taking beds away because they weren't being utilized. That didn't mean we weren't having crimes, it's just that we were finding other alternatives for juveniles rather than incarceration. Adults, it's not the same as juveniles are. We can't put them in a host home or a foster home. But the majority of people then that are maybe aren't sent to prison are being sent to county jails for a period of 18 to 2 years. And that's an impact then based on the county's funding. And as we all know, we are all broke. I think that needs to be looked at so that there's a true picture in saying, okay, there is maybe a decrease in bedding for the DLC, but yet then it's an impact to counties. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else got a comment?
Steve?
Steve?
Yeah, Stephen Kelly, I run the Economic Development Office. I'm wondering if part of the decrease in the number of beds could be because more prisoners are being rehabilitated. And my question to you is, what is Trinidad's facility of the percentage of inmates that are returning to prison as opposed to other facilities? I think we have less returning here than other prisons do, which to me would mean some of those prisons where they keep returning, they ought to ship them here to get rehabilitated better.
So your recommendation would be is
Keep this place open and rehabilitate them here.
Yeah, I don't know that the department keeps absolute statistics. They do on recidivism, but oftentimes by the time the inmate has reached our Trinidad facility, they may have been in 3 or 4 other facilities as well and taken advantage of programs there. And then arrives at the Trinidad facility and does utilize some of the programs available and then goes out into the community, because obviously a lot more of your offenders is going out into the community from the facility than you would find at some of the medium and close custody facilities.
Why would they be transferred from one facility to another and wind up here?
Well, there are a number of reasons an inmate might get transferred. One is programming. They specifically need some sort of program that's offered at one facility and not at another. Sometimes it's a security issue. They need to separate one inmate from another inmate because they have affiliation from street or street gangs. I know they move offenders around, inmates around because of the gang issue and trying to keep those separated. Sometimes it's a move to accommodate the inmate based on the fact that his family might be here or his family might be in Sterling, and so the department ends up moving a little closer. Might be a mental health or a medical issue, so there's, I mean, a whole myriad of reasons why they move.
One last statement, but it could be because those programs in the other prisons didn't work. So they moved them here and they worked. So I just wanted to have an idea of the percentage of the prisoners that are here that don't return back to prison compared to other prisons.
Okay, great comment, thank you.
And just to add to that, Mr. Kelly's comment is that you have to look at the level of the prison that you are addressing, because this one here was supposed to be a maximum security prison when they first started off. Money's ran out, so they didn't go that far. So now it's like a temporary hold for 1 to 2 years, something like that. Maybe the DOC should be here from the facility here to respond to the inmates they have there, the type of inmates they have. They're not violent offenders that go here, based on other prisons.
Right.
So I think all this has to be taken into context, looking to see what type of inmates are coming here compared to what other facilities have, like CSP in Kansas City.
Okay.
Larry, Joe, I would just like to make a comment about, it was addressed just a few minutes earlier, about the value of having the inmates here and the services that they provide to local government that we otherwise could not afford, or projects that they do for us that we probably, due to lack of funding, would not be able to address. We have a couple other department heads from the county with us that I would like to have address you as to what the inmates have done in their departments, painting, paving sidewalks for us, work at our county fairgrounds. Areas that need to be done, but they're not high on our priority list when funding is at a minimum. 2 years ago, the county realized a 46% reduction in our property tax valuation, which meant a 46% reduction in property taxes for us and all the other tax districts in the county. So a lot of projects, we have a lot of infrastructure that's old. A lot of our buildings are WPA era buildings, and the inmates have provided a valuable service to us in addressing some of those projects. Did Phil or Catherine, do you want to address?
Good afternoon, my name is Phil Dorenkamp. I work for Los Angeles County Road and Bridge Department. And a few of the things that the DOC has done for us in the past is, number one, cleaning up our rights of way. My manpower is such that we don't have the crews to go out and clean up rights of way, trash, and other rubbish. And the DOC has been real responsive and real good about going out and doing their work for us. And not that it's a real high priority from a road and bridge standpoint, but from a state standpoint for the traveling public, it is. We try and focus between the shoulders of the road, the surface of things. So they've done an excellent job for us, and that's one of the things they've done for us. Another one is at one time we had arrangements made where their crews out there would weld up what we call our cattle guards that we use on our county roads. And they haven't done that in a few years for whatever reason. The guys told me out there was that their welding crews had other higher priorities than our cattle guards, but that's another thing that they've done for us. They've also done flat concrete work for us. Painted, as Administrator Fabic alluded to, painting facilities for us. They've done some welding of guardrails, etc. for us. So we work real well. I like to think we work real well with the DOC. The DOC works real well with us. And I hate to see that joint workmanship go away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Salazar, and I'm the director for the Department of Human Services. And over the past 6 years, the Department of Human Services has been a benefactor of the work crews that have been sent out to our department as well. Again, we we've been able to capitalize on some of the expertise of some of the inmates in terms of cement, masonry skills, carpentry skills. I can tell you, having a department in an old fort, you know, the maintenance of the facility, you know, takes a lot of work. Again, as Ms. Fabic alluded to also, is that, you know, we just haven't had financial resources to bring on additional staff for the maintenance of some of our buildings. And the Department of Human Services is one of those departments where we've got, from laying new cement in terms of all our interior walkways of the facility, we've had painting, we've had the work crews do construction, building walls, just about everything you can possibly imagine, from tear down to clean up to reconstruction of many areas in our facility. And I've been very appreciative of the work that has been done for our department. We probably wouldn't have as much done and completed if we had not been able to capitalize on work crews that have come to the department. And it's a resource that I and this community have become very dependent on. And it would really be a tragedy to see that working relationship in terms of the two agencies within the county, our whole community, to lose out on that. And like I said, I'm very appreciative. The work crews that we have been very respectful. We have not had one issue. And the crews have come out to our department numerous times, and not an issue one in the 6 years that they've been coming out consistently to our department.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's me again.
We utilized them at the jail facility there to do our cement work. When we had that big snowstorm, tore out our awnings that were canvas, they put building in there. As they mentioned, they got very good experience in welding, cement work. I also sent them aboard for the Trinidad State Junior College Foundation at the shooting range. They've been out there. Excuse me, they built us a couple of carports, sort of, so we'd have some shade and some cover out there so that we'd be able to have a better facility out there at the firing range, which the college is really dedicated in getting it back in place as it was. They are a big asset to this community here in doing work, and it's just, you know, social services, courthouse, the college, other people down in the town area. Plus, we use them for the cleanup. When we have a cleanup in May, we used to use them in the river bottom down there, go out and pull out the trees and stuff like that, and help us clean up litter and garbage and make our city here a little bit more attractive. So it's a great benefit.
Right, thank you.
I am Michelle Miles. I'm a member of City Council, and I wonder if we could just back up a little bit, because I heard about this last night at City Council. Can you tell us what specific criteria you're going to be using and what the schedule is going to be for making this determination?
Not exactly sure of the schedule. I think the CNA hopes to have most or all of the facilities have the review completed by the end of February, the end of this month. They have some then time schedule in which to assimilate all the information, compile all of that, and get it into report form to send it back into the governor's office. The things that we are looking at specifically is currently, you know, population, how the beds are currently being used, what programs are available in the facility, what services are available in the facility. We look at the possibility of expansion. The facility has, you're blessed because the facility there was originally designed for 2,500 beds and only operating 500 beds currently, and really only have just a little over 400 inmates incarcerated there. We look at various aspects of the security, and then beyond that, what I explained to you is we're looking at the impact that the facility has on the community.
Okay, that's a fairly long list. Is it in writing anywhere where the city can formally respond or provide input to you according to each criteria that you're going to be using?
Certainly. You know, my card is here, and you have to give me one with an email address and an address for mailing, any information. You know, a lot of communities have sent us information after we've had the opportunity to.
Because personally, I had not had the ability to prepare, and I think the city would like to have some sort of formal response here. And it would be very helpful to know exactly what criteria. Now, at some point you said 5 to 7 years down the road, we may need to close facilities. Is that the schedule that we're talking about? That decisions are being made now for 5 years down the road?
Well, we are attempting to put together a plan that if the population continues to decrease, what facilities and how many beds that would include 5 and 6 and 7 years down the road. Now, when they decide to start that process, it's totally up to the state of Colorado. We just will supply them information and give them the estimate of what it looks like they're going to need in terms of bed space usage, and beyond that, what facilities they might want to look at first in terms of play.
So you're anticipating it will be approximately 5 years now, or considerably sooner?
You know, again, we're not a part of that decision, so we would just supply the information to them, and they'll make a determination of when and if any facilities need to be closed.
And who would the contact person be at the Department of Corrections?
Well,
To get a little bit better sense of the schedule?
the department, you know, I don't have the answer to that. I'm not sure that the department is going to coordinate. Ultimately, that's going to be the decision of the executive director. Mr. Clinton?
Okay, how would you suggest we get more information about the schedule?
Well, I would recommend, I guess, first of all, that you go through your local facility, which is your local warden, and contact him and seek advice from him about what the process ought to be for you to get additional information.
Okay, and are you evaluating all state facilities now?
We personally are not. We're just part of the team. CNA is a part of evaluating all the facilities. So there's a number of teams of us that are out.
So Trinidad hasn't met some criteria for consideration for elimination any more than any other state facility?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are they going to group them, as I mentioned, on maximum and minimum security in prisons and adjust them accordingly rather than the whole?
You know, my understanding is that obviously you want to take a look at where your needs are. And if you have needs in medium, you don't want to be closing medium beds. If you have needs in minimum, you don't want to be closing minimum beds. So they will determine the needs that they have in terms of the offenders that are coming in and the current population they have, and then what level they need to be housed at, and make a determination from there if they needed to close and what beds they needed to close.
And a lot of it's going to rely on whatever the joint budget committee is going to get DLC for money.
That's correct.
Then DLC has to accommodate, well, we only got $10, so we got to make that $10 stretch between our we're going to close here because then we can save money. So that's a big part of it too. Whatever the joint budget committee is going to get DLC for funding.
Yeah, that's correct. Typically, though, that revolves around population needs, and they do population projections and growth rates.
Just to kind of answer a couple of Michelle's questions, this study was commissioned by the state and not by the Department of Corrections. It was commissioned, I believe, by the governor's, the budget office. And they have, I believe, a mandate that this report be to the JVC by June 30th. And so that gives you a little bit of the time frame of what they're looking at as far as getting the results of this report back. So it's going to be moving fairly quickly. Yeah, it's not that Trinidad was singled out. I think Larry and Joe are part of, I think, 6 teams that are going throughout the state, something like that, looking at every private and public prison as well. So we're just part of the study.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Bryant. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator for Otero County. Going back to a few things that have already been commented on, the first thing that you mentioned was economic impact. I think it's really important for not only you but also the state to really go back and look at what the original intent of placing these facilities was. One luxury that I have is I office at Otero Junior College campus, and the president there, Jim Rizzuto, was a senator for 16 or 17 years, and I get to work with him pretty closely on occasion. And one thing that he always goes back to is making the point that when the correctional facilities and community colleges were placed, they were placed very strategically to help distribute opportunities to rural regions. And I would have great difficulty thinking that those things are being taken away, especially when, from a regional standpoint, we've already had a lot of that taken away. I don't know what you guys' history is, how informed you may have been, but looking at this from a regional perspective, especially in Otero County, kind of sits right in the middle, we have constituents that work here in this facility. We have constituents that worked at Fort Lyon, which was shut down in Benton County, 200 employees. We have constituents that work in both the Benton County and Crowley County facilities, the private correctional facilities that have been lowered the amount of inmates that they have, so they've had substantial reductions as well. And of course the state facility there in Crowley as well. So we've had a huge negative economic impact from what has already been done, much less considering looking at this location for further closure. I think we've paid our fair share. I know that when the state originally had their budget cuts, when we were looking at Fort Lyon, every state organization or department had cuts across the board. DOC was the only department from the state that made all their cuts in one location. They closed the facility. So please do take a look at that economic impact, because again, I think that this region has paid its fair share. You mentioned populations as well. Another thing that needs to be taken into consideration is the projections for this state are that the population will double its size in the next 20 years. So we're going to need more beds. We'll be filling up these beds in the not too distant future, because the law of averages state higher population, more bad guys will have. With that in mind, recidivism. I think what you're going to see in 5 to 7 years, now again, I'm just a layman. I have a slight dog in this fight. I have a corrections member in my family, close family. But I think what you're going to see is early paroles and all the get out of jail free cards that we have, recidivism is going to kick in. I think it's going to be very difficult for our justice system to put these felons back on the street a second time. We are going to ultimately pay a price for a lot of this early release, which is going to be an increase in felons in the future, in my opinion. It's going to come back. You can't continue to let people out early without getting them back. The recidivism rates apply. I don't know, and so my one question might be, what has been the trend? Do you guys have the trend on what the recidivism rates have been over the last few years with our down economy and us taking on this new line of thinking of letting folks out early? Has that changed the recidivism rates at this time?
You know, I've not taken a look at recidivism rates in Colorado. Wouldn't have any idea what they might be. And don't believe that's really a part of the study. That's something that the department takes a look at, and will just utilize our report as information and then apply their facts and figures, historical facts and figures to our information, and then make their determination.
Okay, and I still think it would be a good thing for a study to suggest certain areas that they may need to look into further to take into consideration of whatever findings that you guys have as well. But it seems the last conversation I had with Mr. Clements, it was quite interesting, because we talked about within the prison system, the drug abuse, the mental abuse, everything that we know goes into that. And yet our prison populations are declining, but those same factors in our public are on the rise. So it's somewhere the numbers just don't seem to jive on how we are reducing our population, but yet the problems that instigate the fact that we have felons is growing exponentially. So I think in the future we're going to see that those beds are needed and need to be filled. And please take into consideration that impact that's already been created in this region. Thank you.
Good comments.
Next.
My name is Joel Westbrook. I am a former DOC employee for several years, medically retired. My wife is still an employee, and we came to Trinidad with the idea that we were both going to retire here. And mine came a lot sooner than I planned. At this point, if TCF was closed, we would probably have to sell our house and relocate to someplace else in Colorado where she could get a job. Even considering the employees, there are several coming down from Pueblo area commuting on a regular basis. If this facility is closed, some of them might find other facilities to work in. But what is, considering for this area or this facility, the Canyon facilities are able to use food service, laundry, mailroom, other services, maybe where they can multiply and have same group or same location be able to share the load if there were low employees. But if we drop them here at TCF, there isn't a backup. Knowing that we've already lost 1 out of 5 units there, it probably is going to be a financial. I'm asking that the peripheral facilities stay. What gentleman already spoke about that, the impacts out here in the locations and those places. Then there are people working at this facility who are helping Trinidad's economic base, no question. If beds were taken from the complexes such as in the Canyon area or like Sterling or Buena Vista that are multi-custody in excess of 1,700, 1,800, 2,500 in one area, right, knocking off 400 in that group of 2,500 to have a lesser impact on their ability to work programs or the day-to-day needs of the inmates themselves. So I think it will hurt Trinidad more than it will hurt areas such as Canyon City or Pueblo if things were shut down here.
Okay, great, thanks.
Next. No volunteers? Y'all volunteer.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming down and the job you're doing. And it can't be easy when you're talking to communities that are looking at losing things like we are. We have, I believe, had a good partnership with the Department of Corrections at Trinidad facility. You've heard testimony, if you will, of how it's helped the city and the county. The big deal here right now would be jobs. I mean, oil and gas is depressed. We've lost a lot of jobs there. We had a recently opened mine that's recently closed. We lost another 400 jobs there. Southeast Colorado, and I believe Brian touched on that really good. If you close Trinidad, or Trinidad gets closed, it's a big impact to Southeast Colorado because people work there from Otero County, from here, from Orfano County, from Pueblo. And I believe Mr. Clements last year we met with him, there were some people even as far north as Douglas County that were coming down here. If you combine that, I think Southeast Colorado, we get to feeling like we're being picked on, and I hope that's not the case. It would be like almost a nail in the coffin if we lose those jobs. I mean, we'll survive, we always have, but man, it makes it pretty tough. The other impact I think they found out when they closed Fort Lyon, and what happened here too, is all those employees had children and they go to schools. Mm-hmm. And when those kids leave, and for this area, I assume it would average about $8,000 per pupil. 10 kids, that's $80,000. 20 kids is a lot more money. I don't know where that ends, and that impact I don't think a lot of people thought about when they closed Fort Lyon. I think that did come to bear pretty heavy. Maybe Brian would have numbers on that. You commented on the ability to expand our prison. The footprint is there. That was a big deal. It was made a year ago when we met with Mr. Clements. Up until about a year ago, we were set for expansion. And instead of expanding, we lost about 100 beds last year. I think the point that the gentleman spoke last meeting was very good. You can cut 100 or 200 out of some of them bigger prisons, wouldn't affect them like it affects this community. When I talk about this community, I'm talking about all of Southeast Colorado because it affects employees from Pueblo and a lot of places. I guess that's the point I'd like to make is it hurts here, but we're all a region. I think the point has been made, it would affect us probably more than a lot of other places. And I think the point Mr. Bryant made too about people being released early, I believe that's going to come back to haunt us, and then what are we going to do? I'm hoping that Trinidad, and I don't know this to be fact, but I believe it's probably one of the newer prisons. I would hope that's a benefit for us too, and maybe you could answer that for me. Anyway, I've said my piece. Thank you. Is anybody else? Surely somebody's got something to say.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment further to your point. A community that's got 14% unemployment is a lot more fragile than a community that's got 7% unemployment. Just recently, one of the Trinidad institutions, Steakhouse, Blackjacks, just closed this past weekend. Couldn't make it. You know, she was here last year, the year before that. Every time the mine closes or Pioneer shuts down its operations, the ripple effects are myriad. And I'm just going to tell you, the resilience of this community is being tested at this point with all that's happened in the last couple of years. Will the relative unemployment rates be factored in? Because we've got camel's back with a lot of straw in it right now.
Is the 14% unemployment, is that an actual number?
It's pretty darn close to it. I was just quoted that today. I think it's about twice what it is statewide. Will you be considering relative unemployment rates when you make this decision?
Yeah, that's a good number. That's a good number.
I'll get back to you with more specifically when we trade emails.
I think it's 12.6.
12.6. Yeah, if you could let me know the actual number. I mean, I would sure be accurate in the report, but that's still a very significant number. And also, you mentioned the number of children. I know you threw a figure out of 10. And I don't know how many employees that work at the facility actually live in Trinidad or live around Trinidad, and how many kids they have.
I've had two figures, 38 to 40 and up to 70. Mr. Clements did give us those figures last year. I can't find it, I'll look for it. But that's what I hear from the prison out here.
Okay.
I just to share a phone call I had this morning from a young man that works out there. He's real concerned. He's father of 5 little ones. His father lives in town. He's just moved back here. And his father's had a heart attack. He said, I can't leave, but I can't do without a job either.
Right.
We have trouble enough losing people and young people. We need, this is an important part of what's going on in our community right now. We hate to lose it.
Okay. But again, if you have a superintendent of schools that would have a little bit better estimate on if the facility closed, how many families then that would impact, and possibly then they would relocate and take those children away, which would mean, the state funding amount would drop dramatically. That's a good number to take a look at as well.
And without knowing the actual count, I'm sure there's kids at Homey in Trinidad, and there may be some in Primero or Aguilar.
And I can get Dr. Rodriguez and the superintendent from the other county schools to come up with those numbers of children that belong to DLC employees.
If I could add one more thing. As the Department of Human Services, a closure such as this does have an economic impact to the county, to the community, because you're taking self-sustaining families you're driving them towards government programs. Anybody who becomes unemployed and for whatever reason can't leave the community to find employment elsewhere, that drives them to programs, food assistance programs, Medicaid programs, financial programs that we administer through the department, which creates an additional burden to already taxed system. And our challenge is that we're taking working people who are contributing to the system to keep it afloat, now have to become part of the system. And I think that's important because it does have an economic driver too. Not only if, you know, the loss if they left town, but how about when they can have to remain in the county, in the area. That drives, you know, caseloads up. And I speak to my board on a regular basis. Over the last 4 years, the economic downturn has had such a huge impact to our services. Our caseloads are at an all-time high. And when you take working families and turn them into unemployed working families, that drives caseloads, which adds additional pressure for our county as well and our city. So just something else to keep in mind.
Great, good comments. Thank you.
Any others?
Well, if there's no other comments, we can conclude this session. However, Larry did leave some business cards. If any that matters come to your mind afterwards, I'm sure we can email Larry. We can send him whatever information that was failed to be brought forward here today. And I think we will be doing a little bit more research on some of these statistics, unemployment rates, impact on school districts, etc. But thank you both for your time to be here and to listen to our comments. And I'd like to thank members of City Council and the commissioners and all of the public for being here. And Brian, thank you for coming as well and giving your thoughts on the matter. Appreciate it.
And we thank you so much for taking your time and energy to visit with us and respond to the need. And as Mr. Keller would tell you, it was on short notice. We've made some attempts to get a hold of it, just have fallen through the crack a little bit, and apologize for that. But we do appreciate you taking the time and energy to come out and give us this information. And we'll include it in our report.
I'll see you, bud. Be careful. Don't shoot.
I know, it's hard. I want to say something, I can't say a word. They have two. The fattest? Facility has just been open about 2 years ago. They were just in full operations online. And then this was my wife's first department of corrections. And she is the librarian. DCR? I do. Yes. Yeah, if she had to relocate from here, I'm how the guy goes to read down 6 grade. That gives them a 10-hour day. If they're having to come down here, dealing with a 10-hour day, the extra hour drive, apparently employment is not that good where they're living. You can give those extra 2 hours a day.
Thank you.
We'll see.